Okay. Y'all ready to hear a short little chapter? Oh, thanks for coming. This is so cool. Okay, this is chapter 18. It's kind of the midpoint of the book, and I'm still flailing around trying to figure out how to work within the framework of my open marriage. That's not to say I'm not still flailing. You know, open relationships, I was talking with a couple who do a podcast about swinging, and we were talking about how, you know, a lot of times people glamorize open relationships, poly, swinging, things. It's fucking hard. It's hard to manage just a relationship with one person, add other people in the mix, and it can be disastrous if you're not real careful. And even if you are careful and try to be respectful and responsible, it's still really, really difficult. But anyway, I was having a hell of a time in the beginning, and I was trying to learn my lessons, and sometimes I did, and other times I didn't. But this chapter is called A-Frame. I kept turning to Craigslist to meet people. I understand now that it had become an addiction of sorts. It's undeniably ego-feeding to post an online ad and within minutes have a plethora of men send me messages and announcements of the fact that they like nothing more than to fuck me. Ego-feeding, emotional void-filling, same thing. So I had a twinge of a hangover from the night before because I had, once again, been up late drinking with Scott and some friends on our patio. I woke up horny and randy and ready for some action. Okay, or maybe I knew that some virtual ego stroking from strangers would perk me up. Yeah, maybe that. Of course, at the time, I didn't know that this was what I was after. I had easily convinced myself that I wanted to get laid because I was a horny woman on a mission for sex. Denial is a sneaky son of a bitch sometimes. So I wrote an ad and I posted it on Craigslist. It said simply, "I'm not feeling very well. Is there anyone out there who could make me feel better?" So when a massage therapist responded with bona fide searchable credentials and an offer to give me a massage in his home, it seemed like an offer I couldn't refuse. Because horny plus hungover plus horny plus desperately seeking something equals fucking A. I knew I was going to do that. Oh, here we go. Hungover plus horny plus desperately seeking something equals ridiculously stupid. His picture suggested that he was athletic and fit and about my age. I asked him how old he was, just to double check that my assumption was correct, and he offered his age at 37. Perfect, I thought, that's how old I am. I showered, and I called Scott at work to tell him that I was going to go, and I left my apartment within the hour, and I drove out to this guy's place. Now, was it stupid to go to someone's house I had just met on Craigslist? Yeah. Did Scott think it was a good idea? No. Scott, in fact, tried desperately to talk me out of it, but I couldn't be stopped. I was on a mission. I had to get my void filled, and filled all the way. I was on a mission. So this guy's house was in the Marin Headlands. It was perched high on a hill, and so it took me several minutes to drive the car up the winding pathway that serviced it. It was an A-frame house, a style that I have admired ever since I was a child. My sisters too. And we said, "Oh my God, it's an A-frame house, look how cute." I got like giddy with excitement about the house. The man I was meeting all of a sudden became quite secondary, because I've never had the pleasure of being inside an A-frame house before. Right? So although I'd been a twinge nervous about the prospect of meeting a stranger in an isolated situation, upon sight of his slanted abode, my nerves became replaced by excitement. I was going to get a massage inside an A-frame house. Oh my God, oh, look at that cute A-frame house. I positively squealed in delight. Hungover plus horny plus A-frame house equals extra fucking stupid. I got out of my car and I made my way to the large, somewhat menacing front door, which to my utter surprise opened the very moment I stepped onto the porch. A man, an odd man, peered out from behind the thick portal and ushered me into the depths of the house, where its slanted glass ceilings and walls loomed ominously high above. My nerves resurfaced as soon as I stepped inside, and along with them, a very intense feeling of abject disappointment. The house really wasn't cute at all. It was instead quite creepy. But nevertheless, I took a few more steps inside the foyer, and as I did, I peered at the stranger I had met on Craigslist. He was wearing a ratty t-shirt with holes in it and a pair of worn khakis that recalled the previous decade. He stood staring at me, nervously clutching a glass of orange juice in his right hand. Unable to beat his gaze just then, I looked down towards the floor, and he stood barefoot in a penguin stance, and I noticed that his toenails were scraggly, thick, yellow, uncut. Toenails of a man much older than the 37 years that he had told me he was. My eyes remained rested on this man's feet a few more seconds before traveling up his body and again towards his face, stopping only briefly at the chest, which coordinated with my original assumption that he was athletic and fit. But my facial expression, which probably up to that point suggested mere inquisitiveness, shifted immediately into annoyance when I witnessed the deep, thick lines on his face. This man was at least 50 fucking years old. But my indignation coalesced almost immediately into fear when, as I peered into his eyes, the stranger from Craigslist, still clutching the orange juice in his right hand, reached over with his left hand and locked the handle on the front door. And then deadbolted it. Hungover, plus horny, plus stranger, plus A-frame house, plus entering into it equals extra motherfucking stupid. Panic began to take root. But I managed somehow to push it aside while I thought of what I might say to this man who had easily deceived me into believing he was much younger than he actually was. I looked back up at the slanted ceiling and I noticed for the first time that the pitched glass windows were all shrouded in fabric. He responded to the question in my head. It's going to be hot today, so I pulled the shades. I kind of like them drawn like this. It affords us more privacy, yes? And this is where I took time for a much-needed internal evaluation. Okay, Sadie, you're on a fucking hilltop with no neighbors for miles in a house shaped like a triangle. All the shades have been drawn and the doors have been locked. You're standing beside a man who you know virtually nothing about except for what you dug up on the internet and who has, it appears, lied about his age. And he is standing here with his disgusting toenails, remarking on the advantage of our privacy. Jesus, mother, fucking God, what were you thinking? The panic threatened to overtake me, but somehow I remained outwardly calm, and I stood and I waited for my instincts to offer me a solution like they often do. And luckily it was only a few brief seconds before an idea struck. Privacy, sure, absolutely. Hey, can I see the driver's license real quick? Why, Sadie? Oh, you know, it's just a precaution I take when I meet someone for the first time. You can never be too careful, you know? Oh, of course, yeah, I totally understand. Clarity plus college acting classes equals a wee bit of luck. Apparently this rationale seemed reasonable to him, and more fortunately than I may ever know, the location of his driver's license at that very moment just so happened to be in his car. Out fucking side. I couldn't have known that the Craigslist stranger kept his driver's license in his car. I wasn't thinking that we'd end up outside. I was just asking for his license was just a stalling technique. I decided on my next move. So, creepy guy storing his driver's license in his car instead of his wallet like a normal person? Dumb fucking luck. He unlocked the front door. I exhaled a quiet but exhaustive sigh of relief as we exited the house. I followed him out to his car, an old Volkswagen Bug that was parked under a carport several yards away from the house. And in his driveway, I took a quick look at his license, and as he stood there, furtively eyeing my tits. He was 14 years older than me. You said you were 30 fucking 7. Yeah, well, I lied. I turned and ran like the wind, sprinting furiously towards my car, clutching at my purse as if it had the capacity to accelerate my speed. My own personal turbo boost for escaping liars. And he just stood in the driveway watching me, bemused, or something. Once within the stage of my car, I locked my doors, and I started the engine, and I performed the fastest and most impeccable U-turn of my life right there in front of him, and I peeled out down the hill away from the creepy A-frame house and the stranger from Craigslist. As I drove down the hill, I realized that although he probably was quite harmless, I could not have known that. If he hadn't been, I might have just got myself into all sorts of trouble. But as it was, I learned a lesson that I very obviously needed to learn. Luckily and gratefully, I did so without having to endure any fucked up ramifications as a result. And I vowed to myself that day that I would never put myself into a situation like that again. But accordingly, I will never look at A-frame houses the same way again. Because cute A-frame houses plus creepy Craigslist stranger equals all A-frame houses.